Good morning, Cowboys Nation. Welcome to another episode of the Writer's Block podcast. Your host here, David Howman, joined by Brandon Clements. And we are coming to you this Wednesday right before Thanksgiving for the first time in a long time. Feeling great, feeling thankful. The Cowboys managed to win. They snapped a 5-game losing streak, their longest losing streak since 2015, believe it or not. And they did it, my goodness, in the most just chaotic fashion. For those who didn't watch the game, you really missed a good one. There were missed field goals, there were blocked field goals, blocked punts, two kickoffs returned for touchdowns, a Hail Mary that worked out successfully. This game had everything. And for those who are watching on our YouTube channel, you see that I'm wearing a Arizona State shirt, which if you haven't noticed by now, I went to Arizona State. I'm a big Sun Devil fan. And for those who watched Arizona State's game, all of you out there, I'm sure we're watching just because you want to support me and in solidarity with the Sun Devils having a great year. They beat BYU in a thrilling fashion where the fans stormed the field. There was still a second left on the clock. They had to usher all the fans off and play one extra second with a Hail Mary. Just absolute utter craziness. And I thought this might be one of the most crazy endings I've ever seen in a football game. And then the very next day we get this game, Cowboys, Commanders, and it just absolutely took the cake. So all in all, for me personally, it was a great weekend of football. Both my teams won. They did it in just, bewildering fashion. Doesn't make any sense. Defies all laws of physics. But Brandon, how are you doing on this Wednesday morning, right before Thanksgiving? And what are your plans for Thanksgiving? And what are you most thankful for this year? Could be thankful for, the Cowboys finally winning a game, or, things in your own personal life, whatever it is. The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I got to follow that up with congrats again to Arizona State. Howman and I, we do bust each other's chops about our respective teams, but at the end of the day, hey, we're happy to see that our teams are doing better than, kind of like what Alabama's doing these days. So it's kind of refreshing to see that. And my Syracuse Orange, it wasn't, I wouldn't say, a thriller, so to speak. It was just a good football game against UConn this past weekend. They're one game behind Arizona State in the win column, I believe. So, or is it 2? I can't remember. I know Arizona State's they're up there in the top 25. Syracuse is just outside the top 25. So I'm looking forward to the big Miami game this coming weekend. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Cuse can break the top 25. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm thankful for a lot of things. For the Cowboys, I'm thankful that Brandon Aubrey righted the ship. As a Brandon, I wanted to make sure there are some people on social media thinking he's broken now. And then I was like, all right, let's hold on here. And I think he put that to bed pretty quick after some great kicks. And then, I can't say I'm thankful for the Cowboys win. It was a crazy game, but I'm not going to lie. And I know this might go off the wrong way to some people, but I don't know with this win, what does this win really do? It's moving us back, draft wise. I'm ready for a tank. That's just me. I want to see Trey Lance. I want to see, those things. But I will say though, as a fan of football and a fan of the Cowboys, it was fun to watch them, in a thriller, one of the craziest games I've ever seen in my life. Whether it's college football, NFL, it doesn't matter what sport. It was one of the craziest games I've ever seen. And I had zero expectations coming into the game. They were double-digit underdogs. So I figured, okay, they're probably going to get their butts kicked, and I'm just going to sit here in the pit of misery by halftime. That's what I was thinking. And to my shock, it was a crazy game. I think the fourth quarter alone was 24-17. In the previous 3 quarters, there was not a lot going on. Some special teams blunders all over the place, but yeah, and it was it was an interesting game. And on a personal note, I'm just thankful for the health of my family and friends. Everybody stay enjoy themselves for the upcoming holidays. I'm thankful for I'm gonna have a great Thanksgiving with the family, both my family and the in-laws. So it's gonna be very festive. Probably going to put on a few pounds because I think that's what we usually do around this time of year. So I'm ready to feast. And also, I'm thankful to potentially see a Trey Lance and Tommy DeVito, Syracuse legend Tommy DeVito, Thanksgiving matchup. With that being said, let's see what happens here in the next day or so.
I'm not sure you're gonna get that wish, but especially after Cooper Rush having the game that he did.
I know.
But we can all hope, right? It's always important to have dreams.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you took the easy answer with what you're thankful for in your personal life, right? Like health, family. I actually this past weekend, my wife and I went to go see a comedy show, and Jared Freed. I'm sure there's some people listening who have heard of this guy. I personally had never heard of him. Yeah. He does some sort of Bachelor podcast, and so my wife knows him, loves him. She booked the tickets. He was great. Go check out his stuff if you haven't. He had a bit where he was talking about Thanksgiving when people go around the table and it's like, oh, what's everybody thankful for? He was like, I hate the people who say like health and family. It's like, oh wow, you took both my answers. Like, you can't do that. You can't take two. Like, you pick one. So, Brandon, I'm glad that you fit that stereotype of taking both answers, not leaving anything for the rest of us.
No, hashtag blessed. Hashtag blessed.
Yeah, hashtag blessed. I of course, what I'm thankful for, this will be my first Thanksgiving as a married man. I'm very thankful for my wife. Get the easy points right out of the way right there.
Yep, smart guy.
So she always, of course, she's the number one fan of the show. She listens all the time. So thank you, honey. I love you. Thanks for putting up with me. And of course, for Thanksgiving, we're actually going back to her home in Chicago to spend some time with family. So it's going to be a good time. Nice. I will also be putting on a few extra pounds. I'm going to be doing the Mozzie Smith and getting back up to weight, bulking up.
Make sure you get a deep dish while you're up there too.
Oh, that is the plan. Yes, there will be plenty of deep dish. A lot of good time, a lot of good time spent with family, and of course watching the Cowboys taking on the Giants and Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito, Syracuse legend who didn't actually graduate there, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I mean this was such an interesting game. It started out and it was a slop fest. It was just disgusting. I think they said near the end of the game, it was like the first game in NFL history with a blocked field goal, a blocked punt, and 2 kickoffs returned for a touchdown in NFL history. And I was like, that's disgusting.
And of course, the Cowboys have their fingerprints all over it. So,
but they did it in a win. Like
I know
that's you want to be on the right side of history in those kinds of things. And it was funny when Aubrey missed the first field goal gets blocked. That I look at blocked field goals the same way I look at like when a quarterback has a strip sack. Like 99% of the time, it's not on the QB, it's not on the kicker. But then the second field goal, he just missed it. Right, he hooked it.
Yeah,
didn't strike the ball well, and it reminded me last year. Going into the final game of the regular season, Brandon Aubrey had not missed all year. And then in Washington is where he had his first miss. He ended up missing 2 field goals that time. And I even tweeted at the time, I said he's now 1 of 5 in his career in Washington. He ended up hitting 2 more field goals. So he's up to 2 of 7. I can do math. Or 3 of 7. Goodness.
Yeah, 3 of 7.
Yeah. Hey, Arizona State degree at work right there. I didn't major in math though, so
that's okay.
But
you're good.
Point being, I think it's just the field sucked. I mean, Austin Seibert, the Commanders kicker, he had never missed an extra point coming into that game or all season. He missed 2, including what would have tied the game. And I mean, we know that field is not good. We know that stadium's not good. The new owner, Josh Harris, is in the works, and it sounds like it's close to getting approved of building a new stadium. I mean, that's got to be priority number 1 in terms of ownership is, having good facilities, because Lord knows that franchise has not had a lot of good things for a very long time. So I wasn't too worried about the kicking situation, but for me, this game really came down to just like all of the feelings around Dan Quinn. Of course, going into this game, it was that matchup. We were looking forward to it at the start of the year of like, oh, Mike McCarthy versus Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn has a whole bunch of Cowboys on his staff, on his roster. It's going to be a fun one. And then when we got to this game, it was like, well, this is going to suck. Like, he's going to just destroy us.
Yeah.
You know, everyone who had these takes of like Cowboys should fire Mike McCarthy so they can, you know, promote Dan Quinn. Like they're going to be like, it'll be like they're at CVS just pulling off all their receipts, you know, trying to brag. Not so. As you said, the Cowboys were heavy underdogs.
Yeah.
Commanders were favored by 10.5 points. The only team that had a larger point spread this week was the Chiefs over the Panthers. And naturally, when the Cowboys got their around the time that they got the first kick return touchdown is when the Panthers actually tied up the game with the Chiefs with a minute left. And of course, the Chiefs went on to win. But just kind of goes to show what a wild week it was around the NFL. And I think the Cowboys really still take the crown for the craziest game. But what were your thoughts and feelings facing off against Dan Quinn in this game? Because I know like some people kind of felt like yeah, we get like this is our vengeance on him for leaving us, even though obviously, you know, head coach is a better job than defensive coordinator. Yeah. Other people were just happy to see him again. How were you feeling watching the team beat their former coordinator?
I mean, honestly, I think that even the broadcasters made a joke about it. Like, man, Dan Quinn's in the building. They figure out how to play defense again. Like that, you know, that was kind of, you know, it was to me, that was arguably the best defensive performance of the season for the Cowboys. And it's against a Washington Commanders team that's, you know, let's be honest, they've been really good. Like they've been a really good team this year, and they put up a lot of points. I mean, they have a lot of weapons on that offense. And I was, you know, I just think the players, especially for the Cowboys, I felt like they, you know, I know you're not supposed to be like, oh, I have to, you know, it's like extra things to play for kind of a thing with Dan Quinn being in there. But I kind of felt like they played a little extra with an extra chip on their shoulder because of Dan Quinn and his presence, and the fact that you know, a lot of the former teammates are across the field, you know, this past week. And just for example, it was definitely chippy out there. I mean, Dorrance Armstrong was sitting there running his mouth. I did see that, you know, one point, which I get. I mean, it's you know, I did see a smile at the end of it because him and CD had a little conversation. Maybe they were talking about what they're doing for Thanksgiving and whatnot. I'm not sure. I didn't get a mic on it, but you could tell, like, you know, they're having fun with it. But obviously, they're both, you know, I think any of the former Cowboys players that are on the Commanders at this point, you knew they were playing with a chip on their shoulder, because it's like, yeah, you guys, you know, you guys didn't try enough to keep me in Dallas, kind of a thing. You know, like there has to be, there's always something. Like Michael Jordan always had like a chip on his shoulder, or he'd make something up in his head to like go at, like, yeah, he looked at me the wrong way, now I'm gonna have to kick the crap out of him, like on the basketball court. Like that's, like, players do that. Like athletes sometimes they have to find that extra little gear to play. And I felt like it was a chippy game. It's typical Washington Commanders and Cowboys, Dallas Cowboys games. It's always like that. It's a chippy thing. It's an old school NFC East rivalry. And, you know, with a Dan Quinn factor, you know, we'll see how long he's going to be there. I mean, with the way they've been playing, I think Dan Quinn's going to be safe for a few years, I feel like. And, you know, I hate to say this, and this is painful for me to say this because I don't want him here this next year. But Mike McCarthy actually outcoached Dan Quinn. I'm just saying.
You know, I was about to follow it up with that exact point, because yeah, absolutely, Mike McCarthy outcoached Dan Quinn. And I mean, it's not surprising to hear me say that, because I've been probably his strongest supporter, maybe after his agent,
tastes like
all season. But I mean, you have to admire the way that this team played in this one, because we all know that Mike McCarthy's gone after this year, right? I saw, you know, some of the engagement farming accounts on Twitter after the game were like, oh, do you think Mike McCarthy saved his job with this win? I was like, no, clearly not.
Not a chance.
Like, he's gone. Like, And I think he knows it. I think the rest of the team probably knows it. But the fact that the team is still playing and fighting and trying to win, I think on some level that speaks to the level of respect they have for him. And I mean, especially like you said, going up against Dan Quinn, like I don't think that there's necessarily any hard feelings. There's not a whole lot of people in there that are like, yeah, we want to beat you because we're mad at you. But it's the competitive nature of like, this guy did something really great for this organization. He's not part of us anymore. We want to show off against him, right?
Exactly.
And so I think, but also I think from an offensive game plan standpoint, like the offense was not great in this game, but relative to what they did and relative to who they were playing, I mean, Cooper Rush was starting. It's his third straight game he's started. I think easily his best game of the year, probably the best game that he's had for the Cowboys ever, I might say. I know he won a lot of games in 2022 when he was 4-1 as a starter, but he wasn't really doing a whole lot in those games. Like it was a run heavy offense when he was in there. A lot of the throws were short. He was airing it out deep against the Commanders. Like he was throwing a lot. But also
a lot of passes, 75% of his passes.
Yeah, 75% of his passes, and it wasn't just dink and dunk. Like that deep shot to Jalen Brooks, who, by the way, a certain person on this show once said that he shouldn't even be on the roster, let alone active on game day. He made a darn good catch on that play right before.
Hey, a blind squirrel finds a nut. I'm just saying.
And but not just Cooper Rush playing, right?
Yeah.
You have two backups starting in this game at either guard spot, right? TJ Bass was playing at left guard. Brock Hoffman was playing at right guard. Brock Hoffman is primarily a center.
Yeah.
So it's not even like it's his natural position. And then, of course, they were doing what they've been doing the last couple of games and rotating Tyler Guyton with Austin Richards, which I'm not a fan of. But just in terms of instability on the offensive line, Cooper Rush only got sacked once in this game. There were only 2 pressures all game from the Commanders' defense. I mean, the offense was humming on that first drive. Like 3 plays and they were in field goal range, and of course, field goal got blocked. Next drive they get down to field goal range, misses it. Right, like they're still playing like a team whose record is what it is. But I loved what I saw from the offense. Cooper Rush looked comfortable. He looks like he's really hitting his stride now that he's had a few games under his belt. Like he's got chemistry with CeeDee Lamb. Luke Schoonmaker, who we talked about last week, and you gave him zero benefit of the doubt. He had some pretty big plays here. Rico Dowdle had a really great game once they finally started feeding him again.
Yeah.
And
love
against
Rico.
this defense,
Great job, Rico.
Yeah, and against this defense that, I mean, they've got. It's not like they have nothing on their defense. I mean, they came into this game top 10, I think, in sacks or pretty darn close to it. They've got some good pass rushers. They've got Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu at linebacker. And Dan Quinn, of course, we know he's a great defensive coach. Joe Witt Jr., who's the coordinator and actually calls the plays, had for a while been intended to take over as coordinator in Dallas whenever Quinn left. Of course, he followed Quinn to Washington. I mean, these are good coaches. These are good players. And Mike McCarthy he schemed up a game plan that scored points and moved the ball and was able to beat him. And like you said, he outcoached Dan Quinn. And I think, for all those people who for so long were saying, Mike McCarthy's getting carried by Dan Quinn, like the Cowboys got to get rid of him and install Quinn instead, which I don't feel strongly. Like, I like Dan Quinn. I like Mike McCarthy. I always thought it was a ridiculous argument anyway because, I don't think that you fire your coach after a 12-win season no matter what, especially not just so you can, promote the coordinator that you really like because you don't want him to leave.
That's weird.
The Buccaneers did that, I think, going into the 2016 season. They had Lovie Smith. Dirk Cutter was their offensive coordinator. And they really, really liked Dirk Cutter, and he was getting head coaching interviews. Dirk Cutter, by the way, former Arizona State head coach. So there's another connection. Jameis Winston was early in his career, and they were like, you know what, for sake of continuity, They fired Lovie Smith. They promoted Dirk Cutter to head coach for the sake of continuity for their quarterback. And guess what? Jameis Winston, a couple of years later, he was not on the team. Cutter got fired after the 2018 season. It didn't work out. Like we have so many examples in time of coaches who are really great at being coordinators and maybe don't work out as head coaches, and vice versa. There's some guys who are great head coaches and didn't quite cut it as a coordinator. So I always thought that argument was a little silly. And it just made me feel a little bit better to see McCarthy come here with, both hands tied behind his back by this front office. And then he's able to outcoach Dan Quinn anyway.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, the cupboard's pretty bare right now, especially with the injuries and everything with the Cowboys. And I would say the Commanders, obviously, from a talent standpoint, they're a better football team at this stage of the game. And obviously the record shows that coming in and actually coming out of the game. And that's Mike McCarthy. I mean, I've been a critic of McCarthy for a long time. Like I'm definitely one of those people where I'm ready for the contract to end. I'm just ready. I'm one of those where I want to clean up house a little bit and just, get some new furniture in, that kind of stuff. But I will give Mike McCarthy credit. It was a great game plan. And it was nice too. And even the commentators from Fox, like that, shout out to them for bringing that up, where it was a typical run first down, run second down, we're third and long, and then 3 and out. Like there was passing on first down. Like it was, you mentioned that Cooper didn't dink and dunk, but there were situations on first down where it was almost like an extension of the run game, where it was like a short pass for, say 4 or 5 yards. And it's, and you're getting ahead of the chains. And then it's like, okay, hand it over to Rico. Rico averaged 4.5 yards a carry on 19 carries. I mean, it's a good formula. I think that should be something that they should do going forward, where they should, I'm not saying pass first on every time, but, maybe, do some more of those screen plays. Honestly, I like seeing some of those, CeeDee Lamb slant patterns across the middle or some seam routes from the tight ends. But it's, I thought what they did on offense was really good. And, obviously the defense did a great job, I felt like, minus a few plays here or there, which we'll get into. But I think it was a very interesting game. But kudos to the Cowboys for fighting hard and coming out with victory.
Yeah, and after that win, it's their second division win. They're 2-1 in the NFC East now, having played all 3 division teams. And now they head on to their next divisional game, playing tomorrow on Thanksgiving, as they do every year. And they'll be playing the Cowboys and Syracuse legend Tommy DeVito, the man known as Tommy Cutlets, who was a sensation last year when he became the starter. Really only, like, he had one really good game and, like, did the hand celebration. The internet ran with it. Outside of that, though, like, it was, one really good game, one okay game here and there. I'm okay with the hype, but also, he just started his first game of the year this last week against the Buccaneers. The Giants managed 1 touchdown, did not look great. Brian Dable, the head coach, did say that I guess DeVito has a bit of an injury, and he said as long as he's healthy and he's able to go, that he's going to be the starter. And that's kind of the anticipation that he will be. But with the Cowboys coming into this one, obviously vibes are feeling a little bit better after that game, just because we've seen, like, the defense, like we said, took a real step forward. They looked like they were finally capable of doing something. The offense looked a lot better than it has the last couple of weeks. And now you're going into a game against the Giants, who kind of look like they've given up. Really looks, the fact that they benched Daniel Jones, had him playing scout team safety, and then outright cut him.
Not a good look.
Not a great look. Doesn't really seem like this is a team that's, like, still trying to win, right? But then, of course, there's the fact that this game will be played in Dallas, and the Cowboys have not won in Dallas all year long, which makes this last week's win even more, like, surprising, or not necessarily surprising, on brand is what I should say, because, of course, you win as a 10.5 underdog, and it's on the road, right? You're not going to be able to do that at home. But of all the home games left on the schedule, this one to me seems like the most likely win. and felt that way even before we saw the way that they played against the Commanders. Do you agree with me, or are you expecting Syracuse legend Tommy Cutlets to do what former Syracuse legend Donovan McNabb did before him, which is be able to beat the Cowboys in certain games?
Wow, man, that's a good poll there. That was nice. That's usually my department from Syracuse, but I mean, it's tough to say because you just mentioned it. You just laid it out there. The Cowboys haven't won a home game all season, so it's like, what are they going to do here? And you just mentioned on brand. It would be on brand for them to lose a game that they should win. I mean, it's and the thing I will always say when it comes to the Cowboys and on Thanksgiving, I'm thankful for the Cowboys for not playing until after 4:00, so I can eat my food before I get sick, because I'm gonna get sick of watching them, during the evening. So shout out to my mom, great cook as always. I'm gonna be eating probably during the Lions-Packers game. Who are the Lions playing? I forget. I don't even know. But last year it was the Lions-Packers.
The Bears. They're playing the Bears.
I know it was one of the NFC North teams. But the Lions, every year they play at 12:30 Eastern. So I'm usually sitting on the couch. I'm already getting a plate of food. I'm ready to rock and roll. So I nothing's going to surprise me with this Cowboys team. Should they win? Yes. Will they win? Probably not. Let's be honest. I mean, they're not a good home team right now. Like, until I see it, I don't believe it at this point. I get the Giants locker room's a mess. I know Malik Neighbors, the things that were said about that, and that's coming from a rookie, not a veteran. That kind of tells you how bad the locker room is right now, and it seems like heads are going to be rolling at the end of the season. Obviously, they've already started doing that, because Daniel Jones might be a Baltimore Raven for all we know by next week. We don't, is one of the reported teams. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, the Cowboys should win this game, but I'm not going to get my hopes up that they will. And I could see a Tommy Cutlets special on Thanksgiving, which is bittersweet because I've always been a fan of Tommy DeVito, and I do like seeing him play well. Former Syracuse Orange guy. I don't know. It's going to be. I'll just say this: I won't be surprised if they lose, but they should win.
See, to a similar extent, about how you would feel, bittersweet if Tommy Cutlets, got the win. That's how I felt this last week. Of course, Jaden Daniels, yes, similar to Tommy DeVito, Arizona State legend, but did not actually finish at Arizona State. He transferred on to LSU. But he's still a Sun Devil in my heart. And again, he, just like Tommy DeVito, he's playing for a division rival. So, of course, Jaden Daniels had all in all a pretty good game against the Cowboys. He had 2 picks, but I mean, he's on my fantasy team. He had a great game, so I was happy with that.
He's a leading rusher. He rushed for 74 yards.
Yeah, he ran in for a touchdown. He threw a touchdown as well, I think.
He's a great player. He's to me, he was my top quarterback coming in this past year. We can go back to the tape because everybody was all on the Caleb Williams train. And I was the one guy that said Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in this class. And so far, I feel like I'm looking pretty good right now. So I shout out to Jaden Daniels. And he sucked.
This past week, in Caleb Williams' defense, he did have probably his best game of his very young career, and it came against one of the very best defenses in the NFL, against Brian Flores and the Vikings. So that is impressive. I would argue that the Commanders, some crazy how, have a better coaching staff than the Bears, and that's contributed to it to some degree.
Oh, wait, speaking of coaching staffs, not to go down this rabbit hole real quick, but a lot of talk about your favorite head coach's quarterback, Bo Nix, offensive rookie of the year. You buying or selling that?
I'm selling it. I'm selling it for a penny. Look, I will admit Bo Nix has played better than I anticipated, but at the same time, you look at the Broncos, you look at the schedule, you look at who he's done it against. Not exactly the cream of the crop. And they have a tough schedule over the rest of the season. Also, the Broncos, I mean, the real reason that the Broncos have as many wins as they do is because that defense is really, really, really darn good. They are. I mean, the offense doesn't really have to do a whole lot. So we'll see how that lasts. But I still think, I mean, Jaden Daniels is still the front runner. I think if anybody comes and wins that award over him, it's probably Caleb Williams if he keeps doing what he did this past week. They also have a new offensive coordinator. They fired their guy, their initial coordinator 2 weeks ago, and the offense has looked better, even though the Bears haven't won since they made that move. But
interesting.
Either way, we know the offensive rookie of the year is not coming from Dallas.
That is a fact. That is a fact of life right there.
I think Cooper Beebe's been pretty darn good, but just not that good. As we've looked to this game, though, of course, another potential contender is Malik Neighbors. He's had a really great rookie year, but the Giants really not much has gone right for them, and so I do feel like they can win this game. The Cowboys. They opened as 4-point favorites, according to whichever betting source ESPN uses in their app. I don't keep up with all the sports books and all that, but I saw that they're a 4-point favorite when it first opened up. And of course, generally the rule of thumb is you get 3 points as the home team. So on a neutral field, it would be like a 1-point favorite. That feels about right, given the way that these two teams have played, given the way the Cowboys specifically have played at home. So I'm really cautious to say that they will win this game, but at the same time, like, they looked good this past week. The Giants are worse than the Commanders. They're getting, I think, Brandon Cooks back. It seems like everything pointed to him coming back for this game. They just got Deron Bland back. Trayvon Diggs, who missed this last week, might be back. I don't feel confident because it's in Dallas, but I'm going with predicting a Cowboys win. How about you?
Yeah, I'll predict it. Yeah, I'll predict the Cowboys win. But I'll say this.
I thought I was lacking confidence in that.
Oh, no. There's very little confidence here. It's a game they should win, but I'm not going to throw my remote at the TV because it won't surprise me if they choke on Thanksgiving at home. So they should win this game. And, if they bring like their B- game, I think they can still win.
Yeah. I think, again, Cowboys have lost a lot of games this year that they should have won. So it wouldn't surprise me if they lose. But if they do win, okay, then we're sitting at what, 5-7 would be their record at that point. Mm-hmm. Here's my question. 5-7 after Thanksgiving. Commanders have lost now 3 in a row. They're starting to slide. This week, they play the Tennessee Titans, who statistically have one of the top 5 defense, and they just upset the Houston Texans. Their offense has started to catch up a little bit to their defense. Yeah. You look at the rest of the NFC, right? There's going to be 4 division winners. Cowboys are – it would take a lot for them to win the division at this point.
Yeah.
So they're probably not going to be one of those top 4 teams. You look at the Vikings and Packers are probably getting those top 2 wild card spots. Assuming the Lions hold on to win the division, probably you're getting 3 playoff teams from the NFC North, however it actually stacks up. So potentially creates an opportunity for that 7th seed. Right now, if the season ended today, the Commanders would be there. But again, they've lost 3 straight. Everybody now is talking about how Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator, his Cardinals teams tended to start hot and then fade down the stretch. Kind of looks like that's happening again. Yeah, it does. And if you look at the rest of the NFC after those top 6, there's 2 teams, Commanders being one of them, who currently have a winning record. If the Cowboys win on Thanksgiving, of course, I think their next 2 games after that are also against teams with a losing record. It's the Buccaneers, who are 5-6, and it's the Panthers, who are 3-8, I think.
That sounds right.
By the time they go to Philly to play that rematch against the Eagles, they could potentially have a winning record. Are you buying that? Not even as like that's going to happen, but just as a possibility that they might not actually be out of the playoff hunt now.
Yeah, they can't even tank right. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? Like, they can't even tank right. So, yeah, to answer your question, they certainly could be floating around by the end of the year at a very ugly, like, let's just say 9-8, 8-9 record, which, depending on how things fall out, it's possible they get that final spot in the playoffs. but it also says they're not going to get that high of a draft pick. So, and the Cowboys need some help. So it's, there's a few different layers to this. I mean, obviously at the end of the day, as a fan and a supporter, I want them to win every game. Like, let's be honest. Like, I do the tanking thing tongue in cheek because I'm a futuristic kind of person. Like, this team I don't think has the goods to win a Super Bowl. Let's be honest. That'd be a very big upset if they did that. But at the same time, like I want to see them build for the future. I want to see them get better for the future. So it's kind of like 6 in one and half dozen in the other for me. It's like I want to see them win, but I also want to see them tank. So, Carolina should be a game they win. I think. I don't
on
think
the road, so it's pretty much a lock.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's in our pal Chris Holly, and I'm sure he'll be at the game because it's close to his home down in Carolina. But I don't think they beat the Bucs. I just don't see it. I think the Bucs are going to beat them. I'm just going to say that right now, unless I see something drastic. Don't hold me to it because I know we'll do picks next week for that. But at this stage of the game, unless I see something different from the Bucs too, because it is Baker Mayfield. He keeps everybody in the game. But if I think Baker Mayfield's the type of player where I think he's going to play very well against the Cowboys, and I think he's one of those guys where they have enough weapons. They have, I think their team's good enough where they'll beat the Cowboys, coming up. And that's the thing too. Real quick on Baker, did you see that block he had downfield, like 40 yards downfield on that run by Bucky Irving? Yeah, like, that's why I love that. I love that. Like that's why guys play with Baker. Like they love playing for Baker because he's banged up. Let's be honest. Like people can say what they want about Baker Mayfield. Like that's a whole different conversation. But when he's between the lines, like there's not many players in the league that other guys are like, oh, that's my dog right there. Like Baker Mayfield's a dog, and to me, like he shows the toughness that I feel like at times the Cowboys don't. They lack. So for me, it could be one of those games where Baker's just out tough. He gets his troops ready. He out toughs the Cowboys. The Bucs as a whole out tough the Cowboys. So Carolina, they should win. Buccaneers, I would at this point I feel like the Bucs are going to win. And then this coming week, the Giants, they should win that game. But I'm not going to lie to you. I wouldn't mind seeing them tank the rest of the year because I just and that's a God's honest opinion. Like that's what we do here on the podcast. Like that's my.
I think it's fair too because like the moment that Dak Prescott went down and we knew he was going to be out for the year, I was fully on Team Tank because the reality is you're not going to be a serious contender with Cooper Rush at quarterback. All due respect to Cooper Rush. Yeah. I've said the quote before on here. Tom Moore, a very long time coach. He's still a consultant with the Buccaneers, actually. He was, I believe, the offensive coordinator for the Colts when Peyton Manning was there in his heyday. He had a hilarious quote where some reporter they were observing practice and they were like, well, why don't you give your backup quarterback any reps with the ones? And he said, and I'll censor it for our audience, but he said, if Peyton Manning goes down, we're screwed, and we don't practice screwed. And the idea being like, if you lose your star quarterback, like maybe you can gut out some wins with a backup, but you're not unless you're Doug Peterson in his prime, you're not winning a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback. It just doesn't happen. That's why that year for the Eagles was so phenomenal, was that it had never been done before. I was fully on Team Tank. Now, that being said, the Mike McCarthy fan in me would love the idea of Mike McCarthy and Cooper Rush dragging this team that Jerry Jones set up to fail to the playoffs, and then walking into that room after, and with his contract expiring, and Jerry being like, "Oh, hey, you want to come back for another?" and Mike McCarthy just being like, "Nope, good luck, screw you." Like,
what that reminds me of?
He's going to try and, he's going to, like Micah Parsons said, he's going to try and go somewhere else, and get another job. And a lot of coaches don't get third opportunities at being a head coach. It's hard enough to get a second opportunity. Getting a third is rare these days. So I think it would be really cool for Mike McCarthy to like go on a little bit of a run and show like, hey, I'm still a good coach. Like I can still do these things. Someone else give me a chance, but also Jerry, don't even bother trying to keep me around.
Well, dude, you know what's funny? You mentioned that. In a way, there's like the way you presented that. It makes me think of Major League, the great baseball movie with the formerly Cleveland Indians, now Cleveland Guardians. But Tom Berenger plays the catcher, Jake Taylor, in that game, in that movie, and he's in the locker room, and pretty much like kind of like what you said, like they're setting us up to lose. And I'll keep it G-rated for the listening and viewing audience, but pretty much saying let's stick it up ownership's effing we'll just say ace. I'm trying to be as clean as possible here, but that's the whole gist. Like that's like kind of like it's possible that McCarthy and Cooper Rush could do that. I mean, I don't want to see it. Like I want to see McCarthy gone after this year, and I want Cooper Rush off the field at this point. I want Trey Lance in the game. Like we all know that. That's already established. We get that. I'm full team tank, but at the same time, I know it's kind of like, well, which side are you on? I still want to see my team play well, but I at the same time, I want to see them play well in the future as well. So it's like to me it's a tough place to be because I don't think this team can win the Super Bowl, but this team can be good enough to get a worse draft pick and make it fun, for the last quarter of the year, so to speak. But for me, like the guy who wants to see it good going forward when Dak's back, and things are rolling with a new regime, I just want to see them play the young guys. I mentioned it last week. We move the offensive line around, let Trey Lance play. I want to see some more Marshawn Nealon. Like I want to see these young guys in there. And by the way, speaking of young guys, shout out to TJ Bass, who filled in at left guard this past week. His PFF numbers were fantastic. One of the best guards in the league this past week. So shout out to one of my favorites. Back in my writing days, I wrote a piece about how great TJ Bass was in college and what I think he could be in the pros. So TJ Bass, thanks for proving me right. Once again. So kudos to these young players. But again, let's play the young players. Let's let them develop. And then when Dak comes back next year and ready to rock and roll with the new regime, we hit the ground running. We get back to where we need to be, which is the promised land, which is the Super Bowl.
And I think there's absolutely merit to that idea. And like I said, I'm Team Tank, but at the same time, like the idea of Mike McCarthy pulling it off and doing the thing, and like against all odds with a backup quarterback, with just this horrible team that Jerry saddled him with, and then just like giving him the finger as he walks out. Like it would be beautiful. It would be beautiful. And it's funny because like during this game, right? When the kick was blocked, when the punt gets blocked, like when Rico Dowdle fumbled, they're doing all these things and they're like losing. Like on Twitter, a bunch of Cowboys fans were just like, "Oh, this team, like, oh, they're so bad." And I was like, first of all, what do you expect? Second of all, then when they started turning it around and they started winning, people were like, "Oh my God, they can't even tank right. Like they can't do anything." And I was like, make up your mind. What do y'all want? Do you want to lose to get the draft pick? Do you want to play well? Like we just like to complain, which is fair. Like I do enjoy a good complaint session, but one thing I'll add about this before we pivot into making our predictions for the rest of the games this week. Right now, I mean, the Cowboys' bugaboo in the playoffs under Mike McCarthy has been the 49ers, right? He beat them in 2020 in the regular season when they had Brandon Allen, I think, was their quarterback. They were playing some sort of backup in 2020. They beat them then, have not beat them since, got bounced from the playoffs by them twice, of course. Right now, the 49ers are 5-6. They're last in their division. If the season ended today, they would not make the playoffs.
Crazy to think, by the way.
Which is crazy, right? And I mean, part of me still believes that they're going to turn it around. They're going to win that division. But it's possible that they don't. And going along with that same idea of if the Cowboys manage to turn things around, maybe they get a little hot, they get into the playoffs, and they don't even have to worry about potentially facing the 49ers. Like if those guys are out and they're in, I mean, obviously the easy answer is the Lions, who already destroyed this team when Dak was on the field. But
yeah,
it's once you allow yourself to get to that mindset of this could happen, the possibilities become very, very entertaining. But we've got a long way to go before we even get to those realities. And it starts with week 13 of NFL action beginning on tomorrow with Thanksgiving. Of course, there's the 3 classic Thanksgiving games. We've both already picked the Cowboys to win. So we know how we feel about that, although none of us feel confident about it.
No.
How do you feel about Lions and Bears? You already said like you're not going to really be watching that. You're busy eating and digesting your food before the Cowboys make you sick. But
yeah,
you feel like the Lions, or you think Caleb Williams and his momentum is going to carry him forward to a big upset on Thanksgiving morning?
I mean that can certainly happen. I just don't see it happening. I think the Lions are just a juggernaut right now. I think Dan Campbell's got those boys rolling, and I think it's going to be closer than the experts predict. I think it's going to be one of those close division matchups that we talk about with the Cowboys and their whole NFC East, brethren, so to speak. But that's how it goes. Steelers, Ravens, doesn't matter what the records are. They're always going to play each other tough. I think the same goes here. I think Lions, Bears are going to play each other tough. Lions are obviously the better team, but I do think that Detroit Lions will pull out the dub.
I'm inclined to agree. I think the Bears give them a bit of a challenge because their offense has looked better since they promoted Thomas Brown to interim offensive coordinator. Caleb Williams looks a lot more comfortable. That's good for the Bears, but at the same time, I mean, like you said, the Lions are a juggernaut right now.
Yeah,
I think they win. Which brings us to the Thanksgiving night game. As we're all falling asleep from the tryptophan and everything and going into a food coma, we have the Dolphins taking on the Packers in Green Bay, which it's interesting that it's these two teams because they both, early on in the season, both suffered injuries to their starting quarterback. Yeah. For a while, it looked like, the Dolphins season, it seemed like it was definitely over. It's still very much in jeopardy. Packers were able to survive Jordan Love's absence. They won a couple of games. He came back. They've turned it around. They're in a really great spot to make the playoffs. But the Dolphins, the last couple of weeks with Tua Tagovailoa coming back in, they've looked more like their normal selves. They've started winning some games. They've started stacking some good football. Yes. Can they pull it off on the road in Green Bay on a short week?
No, I don't think they you set it up nicely. I mean, yes, having Tua back in the saddle for the Dolphins obviously makes this game more interesting. But the Packers have just been they're with Jordan Love in there. It's a whole different team. I think we saw with the Niners this past week. Yeah, albeit it was Allen as the quarterback, not Brock Purdy. I get that, but they still had some of their horses on defense. The Niners are still well coached on defense as well. And I think Jordan Love played a heck of a game. And I think because it's at Lambeau, that's the deciding factor. I think the Packers win the game.
I'm inclined to agree. I think also, for me, what I always come back to is Green Bay is a tough place to win, especially at this point in the season. 100%. And you think about the Dolphins coming from Miami, you don't exactly deal with a whole lot of cold down in Miami. So going up on a short week, going up to Green Bay, playing in that fan base, playing at night, you got something to say?
But yeah, I was going to say, it just made me think of something too. Dolphins, Thanksgiving, bad memories back in 1993, Leon Lett. I can never have the Dolphins win on Thanksgiving ever again.
That's fair. And as punishment for bringing up bad Thanksgiving memories the day before, I'm going to go ahead and just throw you this one. I wasn't even alive for that game. I was negative 3 years old. So
thanks for making me feel. Yeah, and to be fair, like I was young at that point. Like I remember it. I still have the VHS tape of that team of that year. Yeah, it was snowing in Dallas Fort Worth. So for what which up here in the oasis of beautiful Central New York, this time of year we get a lot of snow. They don't know how to handle snow down there. Let's be honest. So it was a whole different ball game. Leon Lett, I still love you, Leon. BB in the Super Bowl when the fumble and everything. You've made a few mistakes over the years, Leon, but we still love you.
Absolutely. Still love Leon Lett, Cowboys legend through and through.
Yes.
And he was also a coach for quite a while under Rod Marinelli. So
yes,
he's more than paid his dues to this franchise.
100%.
But some of us will still bring up his worst moments.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as you will. But moving past Thanksgiving, moving to Black Friday, for the second year in a row, we have an NFL game on Black Friday. This year, it's the Raiders playing against the Chiefs. And I know we've kind of established a pretty strict rule here. We don't pick against the Chiefs. That said, a year ago on Christmas, I believe, Christmas Day, these two teams played. And the Raiders, at that point, also led by Antonio Pierce, the worst coach in the entire history of the sport, as we all know.
I knew you were going to do that.
He pulled off the upset over the Chiefs. Now we've got another island game, Raiders-Chiefs. You're not taking the bait? I'm trying to set you up here. Not taking
Absolutely not. Kansas City Chiefs, and I don't think it's going to be relatively close, let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, the Raiders have been pretty bad all year. They did just suffer another setback in that Gardner Minshew, their starting quarterback. I suffered I believe, broken collarbone. He's out for the year.
He's done for the year.
So not that, Gardner Minshew was probably going to lead him to the win anyway, but now you're on a short week. You're making a pivot to Aiden O'Connell as your quarterback. And by the way, you're facing Patrick Mahomes and a very, very good Chiefs defense.
Is it Aiden O'Connell or is it Desmond Ridder? I thought I saw Ridder.
Your guess
it really doesn't matter. I know. I get it. Yeah. It doesn't really
I have not paid much attention to the Raiders this year, and I think that's justified. I'm dealing with one bad football team already, so either way,
yeah, they're awful. Just hammer.
Yeah, we're both picking the Chiefs. I assume Chris is picking the Chiefs. If he's not, then I'm excited because we're going to be moving up on the leaderboard against him.
I don't think he does. I think it's going to be Chiefs all around.
Moving into Sunday's slate of games, we've got what I think is probably going to be one of the better games this week is Chargers and Falcons in Atlanta. I think the Chargers have been a really, really good team. Jim Harbaugh has really turned this team around. Justin Herbert is probably playing the best football of his career. The defense is really, really good. But at the same time, Atlanta has been playing well. They've stumbled a bit lately. Kirk Cousins is doing really well in that offense. Bijan Robinson is having a great year. I think this could be a really, really good game. But as someone who is a big believer in Jim Harbaugh, I give him the edge, although I don't feel as confident about it as I would most other weeks, but I'm picking the Chargers here.
Yeah, well, this is where we differ, man. We got to go different here somewhere. I believe in Kirk Cousins more than maybe a lot of people. I just, regardless of his age, his health issues, things like that, Atlanta's been good enough in my book to win this game. I think Bijan's been good. Kyle Pitts I felt like he's had some bright spots as well. I think the defense is better than people would give them credit for, in my opinion. And I do think it's going to be a close game, but I do think Kirk Cousins, he does that, that Kirk O'Bangs thing, and just, he wins. He just pulls it out in the end of the game, and they win.
I love it. Next, we've got Pittsburgh Steelers coming off their first loss since Russell Wilson became the starter, and they're playing against the Cincinnati Bengals, who have not been very good this year, but they also have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So you never know when they can make it a game.
Yeah. I mean, they got Burrow, they got Jamar Chase, they got Chase Brown, who's been a really good running back for them this year. I mean, they got some weapons on that offense, and I got to go with the Bengals here. I think it's going to be an upset. I think they're going to beat the Steelers, in my opinion.
It's
a gut feeling.
I'm really tempted to go with you on that because this feels like a classic. Just like last week with the Steelers losing to the Browns, it feels like a classic Steelers loss. Where like, of course they're going to win this game, and then they just find a way to blow it. That said, I mean, Browns have a very good defense, and so it wasn't entirely surprising that they were able to bottle up Russell Wilson. Plus, they played it in the middle of a blizzard. Like, you could hardly see what was happening on the field. Bengals defense is not as good as the Browns defense. And I think Russell Wilson, that last game aside, I think Russell Wilson has really found his stride in the Steelers offense. His connection with George Pickens is unlike any other. I think I'm going to go with the Steelers here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals are able to pull off the upset because it feels like one of those games, but I'm rolling with the Steelers for this one. Which leads me to the next one of the Houston Texans, who we touched on it. They just got upset by the Tennessee Titans, and they're going on the road to play the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had a really rough stretch. And frankly, it's a miracle they haven't made a coaching change at this point. It seems like there's been a couple of points where everyone thought for sure Doug Peterson was getting fired. He's still there. Texans are going to be the odds-on favorite in this one. Are you rolling with them as the favorite?
Yeah, I think the Texans are going to take care of business. The Jags are dysfunctional. They're just downright awful. And Houston, I think, will right the ship. And I think I don't even think it's going to be relatively close. I think Houston puts out a really good performance against the Jags.
Yeah, I think if Trevor Lawrence was playing in this game, and he might, there's word that he might be able to come back for this game. He's been out with an injury. I might be tempted to go with Jacksonville because the Texans have been in a bit of a slump. Even when they beat the Cowboys, it didn't look very good that they beat them. But, I mean, Mac Jones is not beating the Texans. Trevor Lawrence probably isn't either because he's been inconsistent this year and he's coming off an injury. So I'm rolling with the Texans. Next, we move into the Arizona Cardinals, who fell this week to the Seahawks, going up against that formidable Vikings defense in Minnesota. I've been a champion of Brian Flores, the coach. Brian Flores, the defensive mastermind in Minnesota. What he's done with that defense has been amazing. He's my current top pick to be the Cowboys head coach if they make a decision to move on from Mike McCarthy. I don't think it's going to happen for a lot of reasons, but he's who I would want. If I were the one in charge, he's who I would go out and get. And I say all this to build up to I'm taking the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray is just this he's this really high variance quarterback who has quietly been playing some of the best ball of his career this season. I think his mobility, his improv ability really is kind of a kryptonite for this Vikings defense and how Brian Flores likes to attack quarterbacks. There's not many guys that improvise the way that he does. And I think that is going to come in handy here. And I think the Cardinals are going to be able to pull off the upset here.
I think the Vikings are just a better football team. And you mentioned Coach Flores, one of the best defensive minds in the game today. I mean, he just knows ball. He's good at it, and he would be a really quality candidate for the boys. I agree with you. I don't think they're going to go in that direction. I just don't see it. But I think with all the pieces that they have, not only on defense, but last time I checked, Justin Jefferson still plays there. Jordan Addison's pretty good. And I also, TJ Hawkinson's a really quality tight end. Aaron Jones, former Packer, he's done a pretty good job this year. Give me the Vikings.
I think that's fair. And part of me wants to take the Vikings for all the reasons you said, but I just got a feeling. The Cardinals are going to do it. What I don't have a good feeling about is the Patriots, which is our next game we're picking. They're hosting the Colts. I mean, I'm taking the Colts. They have not been a safe bet at all this season, but no. I mean, they should beat the Patriots in every sense.
I think this is going to be an Anthony Richardson get right kind of game, and I think the Colts are going to win.
Yeah, I figured that was probably where we were ending up. Unanimity on that one. Yeah. Next, we've got the Seahawks, who are kind of hitting their stride again after a rough stretch. They're taking on the Jets, who have not hit their stride at all year long. It's just been it was bad football. Then they tried to fix it by firing their coach, and it got even worse. Then they fired their GM, and it's probably going to get even worse. So I'm going Seahawks. Are you doing the same, or are you going to surprise me?
Just like, yeah. I mean, when you think the Cowboys are really dysfunctional as a front office, just look at the Jets. Like, they're worse than we are, and that's saying a lot because the Cowboys are what they are. This whole Aaron Rodgers saga, everything that's happened there, it's a joke. The Jets are a joke. Simple as that. They might as well just pack it in for 2024 and just be done. And they should just forfeit the games because it's like it's just a waste of space and waste of time. They're just an awful football team. I love Breece Hall. They got some good players, Garrett Wilson, for example. But the Jets are just awful. So yeah, Seattle's going to get it. I think, honestly, I think Seattle wins big in this game too. Geno Smith's going to have a good game.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers had a really, really, really bad year. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
Next up, we've got the Titans taking on the Commanders. We already touched on this a little bit. Commanders have been slumping. Titans, Will Levis has surprisingly looked pretty good the last couple of weeks. Titans look like they might, be onto something here with their, brand new coaching staff and all of that going on. But Commanders, they've lost 3 in a row. They certainly have the talent to break this losing streak and get back in the win column. They're playing at home. Do they do it? Do they get back on the right track?
Yeah, you mentioned Will Levis. I've been a believer in Will Levis for a long time, like since his days at Kentucky. I'll forgive him for all the mayo that he likes to put in different things. That's a party foul in my book. But I'll be honest with you. I for fantasy football purposes, like I play in a super flex, but you can play an extra quarterback, and like I always just find a spot on him on my roster. Do I play him often? No. I have a soft spot for Will Levis. I think he has the arm talent. Like he has, like, to me, he has the ability to be a good NFL player, and he's shown it over the last few weeks. But
I love that. Do I find the spot for him? No. But
I'll be honest though, like he's tough to read sometimes, Will Levis, and I think he has a tough time reading defenses. So give me Dan Quinn's Commanders to win that game.
Oh, yeah, that was great. I
try all in a day's work.
I don't have much of a soft spot for Will Levis. I think his mayo stuff is more than a party foul. I think it's a party crime.
Mayo.
This man needs to be investigated. He's got some mayo related skeletons in his closet, but he has been playing better football. And a part of me really, really, really wants to take the Titans in this game, but I just think the Commanders, they've got too much talent. They've got too much going for them. I'm going to go with the Commanders, but just know I really want to take the Titans in this one. So if they win, I will be bragging a little bit, even though I'll have to take the L. Speaking of taking the L, next up is the Panthers, who have done that quite a lot this year.
They're good.
Although they did win 2 in a row before they narrowly fell to the Chiefs, so it seems like better times are on the horizon. Although this week they're hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're clearly a fan of Baker Mayfield. I like Baker Mayfield too. I think he's definitely the kind of quarterback that, plays 110%, plays through the whistle, has like a level of grit you don't often see in a quarterback. I'm taking the Bucs here. I have a feeling you are too.
Yeah, hammer that down for the exact same reason. It's Baker Mayfield's my guy, man. I love that guy. Just his story, just the way he carries himself. I'm a Baker guy. A lot of people don't like him for whatever reason. That's it is what it is. I don't really care. I like Baker Mayfield. Simple as that.
Yeah. Sticking with the NFC South, next up we've got the Saints and their interim head coach Darren Rizzi, who's gotten off to a hot start. He's hosting the Rams, who put up a valiant fight Sunday night against the Eagles, but just couldn't quite pull it through. I'm split on this one because, Saints have looked better. It's in New Orleans, which is a tough place to play, but I do think the Rams are the better team.
Yeah, let me ask you this: is Cooper Kupp playing? Is Puka Nacua playing? I assume both guys are playing. So if those guys are both playing and Matt Stafford's throwing them football, I'm going to take the Rams.
Yeah. Well, in that case, I'm gonna take the Saints just to be different.
There you go.
That way we've got some
differentiation.
Yeah, a little bit. Because I really am split on this one. I could see it going either way.
I think it'll be a close game.
And we've got next up what should be another close game. The Philadelphia Eagles traveling not very far to play the Baltimore Ravens. A rare matchup between these two. They don't see each other all that often. For me, this one seems easy. I know the Eagles have won a lot of games in a row. They look to be stabilizing, but I think the Ravens are just different. I'm taking the Ravens this one. Not really even thinking about it a whole lot. Ravens are they're a better team, and I'm going with them.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and I say this jokingly, maybe jokingly, we'll see. Daniel Jones gets a package of plays for the Ravens this coming week. I'm kidding. I don't have any inside information. Who knows? By after Thanksgiving, he'll probably sign with somebody else. But I would like to see him play for the Ravens just for the strict fact that he's a mobile quarterback, and then instead of using Lamar Jackson and banging his, getting his body banged up, use Daniel Jones, who you're just going to rent for the rest of the year anyways, and let him do a package of plays. Hopefully, if they do this in that scenario, they do it better than what the Cowboys have been doing with Trey Lance. But nevertheless, Baltimore Ravens, they're going to beat the Eagles. Simple as that.
Well, I'm going to breeze past the whole Daniel Jones can do what Lamar Jackson does part because, that's.
No, I'm just saying from a running perspective, let him take some shots against him versus Lamar Jackson. Maybe
that's like saying, oh, we got to keep Rico Dowdle healthy, so let's have Cooper Beebe run some plays at running back. They can't. No, they don't play the same position.
No, here's the thing though. Daniel Jones.
Respect to Cooper Beebe.
Daniel Jones is still. Daniel Jones in a particular system, he can be effective. He can run very well, and he could be almost like their little Taysom Hill in a way. You know what I mean? I know Taysom Hill had a great game this past week. And here's the thing: Taysom Hill as a passer, there's a lot left to be desired. Daniel Jones, same thing. But from a running ability perspective, Daniel Jones is a good athlete, and he's one of those guys that he can run and can pick up some good yardage like Taysom Hill does for the Saints. So,
that is a take I did not expect I would hear. But hey, that's what we do here at the Riders.
That's how we roll.
We come up with the unexpected.
We do.
Next up, we've got the Bills taking on the 49ers. Of course, the 49ers currently have a losing record. They're 5-6. I think they're going to be 5-7. The Bills are just operating on a different level. The 49ers have a lot of stuff to figure out. This is in Buffalo as well, talking about travel schedule going all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast. Also, weather in Buffalo. I believe this is also Sunday night, so it's going to be cold.
Hey, I'll just say, a guy that's 2.5 hours away from Buffalo. I can speak on this a little bit because it's a short drive down the New York State Thruway to catch a Bills game. And here's the thing: it's Buffalo in December. You never know what you're gonna get. It could be 65 degrees and beautiful. It could be snowing a foot. Who the heck knows at this point? We'll see what happens. But it's Sunday night football. It's December football. It's Buffalo. Buffalo's a juggernaut. Josh Allen loves to play in Buffalo. His style of football is just fantastic. I gotta go with Josh Allen and the boys. The Niners are just not looking good right now.
And that brings us to the Monday night football game, which is the Cleveland Browns, the Denver Broncos. You earlier professed your undying love for Bo Nix. You said easy shoe-in for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Should be in contention for MVP. These are your words, by the way.
Whoa, hey.
Should be MVP. You said the Cowboys should trade Dak Prescott and their first-round pick for Bo Nix.
Wow, that's
everybody knows these are your words. You can go back and listen to the transcripts. So I imagine you're taking Denver in this game, which is being played in Denver, a notoriously difficult place to play. Am I wrong in assuming all of this?
Man, great spin, great play on words there. You're a great wordsmith. Go back to the tape. I didn't say anything that far down the drain for Bo Nix. I will give him credit. He has been playing well as of late. I will say that. He has been coached by the legendary Sean Payton, so he's doing a great job there. I just had to say that because I know, off the record, we have some fun conversations about Sean Payton, which we'll leave for another time. But Jameis Winston, I just love the way he carries himself. He does a snow angel face down. Never seen that before. Usually you do it the other way. That's a different way of doing it. He's just a different kind of cat. I think the team's rallying around Jameis Winston right now. I think they love playing with him. Jerry Jeudy's, it's like he's finding this fountain of talent again. Like he's always been a good football player, but like he's been playing at a different level since Jameis took over as a quarterback. I'm going to take the Browns over the Broncos. Let's go.
Well, I think it's the first time in Jerry Jeudy's career that he's had a good quarterback throwing on the ball.
Valid point. I like Jerry Jeudy. And that's the thing. Like I think Jameis and Jerry, I think they have they got a connection there, and you saw it in that blizzard game with the Steelers. That was Jameis Winston's safety net, and kudos to them. I think it's a good combination. I think they. I know the Broncos are a good defense, but I think Jameis does. I think this is one of those Jameis games where he doesn't keep both teams in it. This is like a classic Jameis Winston. Like he just balls out of nowhere and just has a great game, and that's why I think the Browns are going to win.
Yeah, I mean, I think. The Broncos have a great defense. So do the Browns. And what it comes down to for me is who do I think has a better chance as a quarterback of making plays against a really great defense? Jameis Winston, who's been in the league a very long time and done it, sometimes at a high level, sometimes not at a high level, but has done it quite often and has seen a lot of things. Or Bo Nix, who I think probably is like maybe 1 year younger than Jameis at this point. Dude has been around for a while, but not in the NFL.
Long time. Yeah.
And doesn't have the most experience against NFL defenses, hasn't seen a defense as good as the Browns, hasn't seen a guy like Myles Garrett coming down on him and doing the things Myles Garrett does. And also hindering Bo Nix is the fact that he has an absolute fraud for a head coach in Sean Payton, the most overrated coach. And I can say that because all the hype around Antonio Pierce has died down now. He's not overrated. He's properly rated, just at the very bottom, one spot behind Sean Payton, where he belongs. Sean
I knew you were going to get that in somewhere.
Sean Payton, like I said before about Bo Nix, like they've had some good football. They haven't done it against great defenses. They're facing a great one this week against the Browns. Would it shock me if, Pat Surtain has a huge pick on Jameis Winston and that's how Denver ends up winning this game? Not entirely. But I think the Browns have the better coach, have the better all-around roster, have the better quarterback. So I'm going with the Browns, and we're in agreement there. And that rounds out our predictions for this week heading into Thanksgiving. So we're going to eagerly watch the Cowboys as we're trying not to fall asleep after having all of our delicious Thanksgiving food. And we'll enjoy what promises to be a really, really great week of football. It always is a great week when you've got the Thanksgiving games and, of course, now Black Friday. And there's going to be some good games to watch around the NFL. And we'll be back next week, as always, breaking it down for the Writer's Block. So be sure to tune in next week when we come back, and we'll see where these standings are with all of our record predictions and everything like that. But for Brandon Clements, for Chris Halling, who wasn't here with us for this episode, David Howman, on behalf of the Writer's Block, wishing a happy Thanksgiving to all of you, as well as a happy Black Friday to those who celebrate, because I know if you're anything like my wife, you enjoy Black Friday as much, if not more, than Thanksgiving. So wishing a great week and lots of thanks to everyone who listens to this show. See you next week.